thank you everyone for joining us today for the Partner Spotlight. I'm really excited to introduce you all today to one of Appficiency's newest partners, SourceDay. We've actually been partners for a while, but this is our first chance to finally get to make an introduction to our friends. So before we get started today, just to let you all know, we are all on mute, or you are all on mute. But if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat panel. We've got a short window, a lot to cover, but if we do have a few minutes at the end, we'll try to answer a couple of questions as well. And then certainly if there's any questions that get asked that we don't have a chance to answer, we will absolutely follow up after today's call. So to get us started, just want to do an introduction to our friends. So starting with Clint McRee. Clint is co-founder and COO at SourceDay. He's got a wealth of experience from the supply chain performance space, and we're definitely going to draw on that a bit today as I start to ask Colby and Clint some questions. And then Colby Young is the VP of the NetSuite business unit at SourceDay. He obviously works with NetSuite, with SourceDay clients, and with partners. And then for those of you who don't know me, my name is Trent Beatty. I lead Appficiency's partner team here, and I've got the pleasure of working with folks like Colby and Clint and the SourceDays in the NetSuite community. So that's a bit of an intro. Colby, Clint, do you want to take a minute just to introduce yourselves before we get kicked off?
Go ahead, Colby.
Yeah, so as Trent said, I run our NetSuite business unit. Been with the company for coming up on 7 years. The last 3.5 to 4 years, fully focused on our Built for NetSuite verified partnership with NetSuite, really helping product organizations scale their business. I'm excited to be here, Trent, and talk about supply chain.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Really excited to be here. My name is Clint. I'm one of the co-founders of SourceDay. So we've been at this for quite some time. Looking forward to telling everyone our story, and very excited about our NetSuite practice, and working with NetSuite customers is actually our fastest growing segment of our business. So excited to be here with you all today.
Awesome. Thank you both. We really appreciate it. We're going to spend most of our time today, obviously learning about SourceDay, but I will take just a minute to share with those of you who don't know Appficiency yet, who we are and really why partnerships are important, why it's something we're focused on. And then I'm going to ask Clint and Colby a series of questions that I think will spark some conversation and help everyone understand where the potential opportunity is within your own organizations. So with that, as an alliance partner, Appficiency is really focused on that NetSuite community. We're 100% NetSuite focused with regard to the platform and the ecosystem of solutions that surround that platform. I won't read this whole slide to you all, but a couple of highlights. Our team has well over 300 years of experience collectively on the NetSuite community, either working at NetSuite or spending time as NetSuite clients. We've got pretty good experience on both sides of that. And we truly do have best-in-class consulting experience. So really across virtually any industry. And I expect if we shared the attendee list here today, you'd get a sense of that. I think knowing where you're all coming from, you actually represent a wide variety of industries yourselves. So that's fantastic. And then from a partnering perspective, really our role as a partner is to really work with you and work within the NetSuite community to make sure that our clients are getting the most out of that investment, right? You've spent a lot of time and energy and resources figuring out that NetSuite makes sense, but we want to help you do the most you can with it. And with that being said, we all know NetSuite doesn't do it all. So that's why we also align ourselves with partners like SourceDay that can bring solutions that not just fill gaps, but really expand the capabilities of that technology platform that we're working within. So again, today's main goal is to provide an understanding of where SourceDay and their solution fits in. And I think when you hear what Clint and Colby have to share, you'll understand pretty clearly why we've decided to partner with them as well. So let's get started. So with that, my first question for you guys, and maybe this one is more for Clint as a co-founder, but I'm curious, why did SourceDay decide to tackle, for lack of a better term, the supply chain performance problem? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I'll definitely take that. Although Colby's been at SourceDay since almost day one, so he could probably equally is qualified to answer this question at this point. But what drove the origination of SourceDay was supply chain problems. And you go back to like 2008, 2009, we were really dealing with supply chain problems back then, and many of you probably were as well if you were in business dealing with those things. The frustrations that we had was suppliers, probably just like you, were missing. They weren't hitting their delivery dates. They were running late. We couldn't get them to acknowledge purchase orders. And ultimately, that was impacting our business and our ability to be efficient. So it was impacting our delivery schedules. It was impacting our production schedules. And it was really a disruptive issue for us. And as we tried to solve that problem, I just started seeing that there really wasn't any sort of technology or automation stack or platform that could help with this. I mean, sure, companies have software companies have developed supplier portals and done things like that over the years, but for the vast majority of those have failed customers. And so we felt like we had to take a different approach with it and really help customers really digitize their supply chain and overcome the challenges of supplier performance, because we're going to get into this a little bit later, but it's a different problem from a spinning problem. It's a performance problem. And for those of you who are delivering products to your customers, you have to have the inventory, you have to have the materials. And so we felt like we needed to deliver a solution and an organization around solving that for customers. So that was the origination. I don't know if you want to add to that, Colby.
No, nailed it. When I joined SourceDay, I was so excited about the opportunity and the niche focus that Clint had narrowed in upon that really hadn't solved it. And we have stayed very true to this direct spend focus. To Clint's point, much more about performance than necessary spend management, which would be more indirect focus. So for those product companies out there, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, right? This is all for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Clint, you mentioned a time frame. I don't remember what number of years you used, but I think we've all experienced probably a heightened and potentially a changed focus on that in the last few years as well. So that's awesome.
Trent, I can tell you, Tom and I, the other co-founder, and I, we were running around getting investment in SourceDay early on. We were running around telling investors that supply chain is a house of cards, right? It's brittle, it's got problems. We're selling the story, and then along comes COVID, and then we all know what happened there. And then supply chain fell out after that. So not those are kind of things where I don't want to say I told you so, but certainly we saw that as an issue back then, just because things were held together with baling wire and duct tape, and so now we're trying to help organizations really get a solution around this for their supply chains.
Yeah, absolutely. And my next question, I'm going to keep us moving here, but I think it's kind of an extension of what you've already shared, right? From a purpose perspective, why did you come into this space? But I'm curious, not just what types of problems, because I think we're going to get into that deeper, but what types of problems obviously are your clients solving? But also, if I can add on to what's on the slide, what lessons have you learned, have your clients learned over the years from what they've been attempting to solve?
Yeah, I'll try to answer both of those succinctly. We've helped our clients solve a ton of problems, and it's interesting. Clint alluded to kind of pre-COVID. When I joined SourceDay about 7 years ago, the problems were different than the problems today, right? The world we live in today is very different than the world we lived in, 6-7 years ago. Pre-COVID, it was all about on-time delivery, lean, just in time, as high inventory turns as possible. And we were helping our clients, get more accurate, making sure they knew exactly when items are going to arrive and get as granular as possible and as lean as possible and hold as less safety stock as possible and really get the visibility and automation there. Now the problems are very different, right? The problems are, just in time, lean manufacturing. That's kind of out the window a little bit, right? It was kind of buy, and making sure you had the supplier relationships needed to get the inventory that you needed to fulfill customer demand, which ultimately at the end of the day, it's all about that, right? Fulfilling customer demand and hitting growth goals. So the big problem for all of our clients are mainly making sure that procurement and supplier network is not a bottleneck to growth. And as you have demand growing and growing, supply has got to keep up. Well, if you're using all manual processes between NetSuite and your supplier network, email, spreadsheets, and phone calls to manage what we would say is the most important part of your whole supply chain, getting your inventory from your vendors to you accurately, on time, in full, and knowing when delays are going to happen, you don't have a shot at fulfilling that demand. So it's really been looking at procurement and the supplier network now as strategic and not tactical. I would say pre-COVID, it was very thought of as tactical. Go buy your goods, get your goods in the door. Now it's a true differentiator, right? If you're not looking at this as a strategic piece of your business, you're going to get left behind. You're not going to hit those growth goals, and it will become a bottleneck. So I'd say those are some of the light bulbs that have really gone off for a lot of our clients as they've put automation and digital transformation in place in this piece of their supply chain that's now a true differentiator for their growth.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that, I think that's a great explanation, is we are seeing now more than ever, setting SourceDay aside, we're seeing now more than ever that the supply chain discussions have now made their way into leadership meetings and boardrooms. And so it is now something that dominates a lot of those meetings. And so, I'd ask everyone on, in supply chain, or everyone on this call is like, your company is suffering from supply chain issues. You need to insert yourself into those conversations because they're being had at a very high strategic level. And if you're not in those discussions, you should be asking yourself why, because the company definitely needs to be coming up with solutions. You don't want to be that person that answers I don't know what's going on with my parts. I don't know what's going on with inventory. I don't know what's going on with these suppliers. Like, those answers in today's market are no longer acceptable. So we have to make sure that all of our customers can be relevant in those supply chain discussions.
Yep, and this change is constant. One thing we know about any product company and supply chain is that change is going to be happening constantly. And the world we live in today, lead times are getting longer and longer, not shorter and shorter. And the longer and longer your lead times are, the more change on your purchase orders that are going to occur. The data tells us that you're looking at here, this represents about 9-10 million purchase orders that have gone through SourceDay. Over half of every purchase order is going to need to be changed. And that's just binary. Did it change? Yes or no? It could change a dozen times, 6 or 7 times. And if those changes are not communicated with a closed loop and back into NetSuite, now planning, scheduling, accounts payable, there's a downstream ripple effect of bad data. So if you think about your business, and if you're a growing organization and you have more and more change happening on your purchase orders and lead times are getting longer and longer, trying to do this manually, this is going to be a losing battle. This is going to thwart your growth, and this is going to ultimately have a bad explanation to executives and boardroom members as to how are you managing this change in the digital transformation world. So this change has been very eye-opening for people when they really sit back and think about, wow, how many of our purchase orders are changing? How are we managing that? How are we not empowering our procurement team and their suppliers with technology to do their job?
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm biting my tongue and wishing that we've booked an hour because I have so many things I want to add in and ask more questions. But I will keep us moving on and kind of think about everything you said. I'm guessing lots of people on the call today have some visions of where this fits. But my next question is, what types of businesses have you seen? I mean, what types of businesses have you worked with? Is there a profile of a business that really recognizes the impact that we're talking about here today? What's the experience?
Great question. So what I've loved about joining SourceDay and the vision of Clint and Tom, our two co-founders, is we really have not strayed away from our focus in the supply chain. And that is, direct spin, purchase order lifecycle management, supply chain performance, supplier performance, making sure you're getting your goods from your vendors when you need them on time, and knowing if there is going to be adjustment ahead of time so you can plan and schedule for it. So we do not live in that indirect world, which are the Coupas, the SAP Aribas, the iValuas. They are really great at what you'd call spin management, making sure you're buying things, tables, chairs, monitors, office supplies at the best price possible. It's all about spending less. In the direct spend world, some folks are happy to spend more to get it on time, to get it at a lesser lead time, to get what we call on time in full. So our focus are those manufacturers, distributors, retailers, CPG companies, e-commerce organizations, anyone that is reliant upon a vendor network to get inventory in their doors so they can build something, distribute something, resell something, right? Responsible for cost of goods. That is SourceDay's focus, and that's what we're committed to. And that's the spin that's going to shut your business down, right? If Trent doesn't get his desk chair, he can stand for a couple days, or
couple
deal
hours
with it, right? A couple hours. But if you don't have the widgets you need, now you have a stock out, now you have a lost customer for life, maybe. And so that's the critical spin, is direct spend. So that's kind of overarching, right, the focus of SourceDay. When you think about, are you the right client for SourceDay? I've talked about growth a lot. I would say that's the most critical, is if you are growing, this problem, this first mile of your supply chain, either already is a bottleneck or will become a bottleneck. So our clients that we're working with, specifically in the NetSuite space, are traditionally all growing and growing at a pretty good clip. And they are investing in SourceDay to make sure that they hit these growth goals. I'll give you a quick example. We have a client, Winky Lux, they're a cosmetic brand. They quote their COO, we have a case study with them, quoted that with NetSuite and SourceDay in place, they were able to double their business without adding headcount. With the automation, the technology to make the business decisions and allow their people, their employees, to focus on what was important and let automation take care of a lot of the administrative work, allowed them to double without adding headcount. And that's what businesses need, right? Let their people stay focused on strategic things, let automation handle a lot of the administrative tasks and manage by exception. So that's what I would say. It's, if you're growing, if you're a direct spend focused organization, if 80-90% of your spend is cost of goods, we'd love to talk to you and see how we can help you continue to grow.
Yeah, the other thing I would just add to that, I think that's a great response to. The other thing I would add to that, and maybe I'll talk about this later, and I'm getting out ahead of myself, but is looking at your ERP itself. One of the main differences that direct spend has versus indirect spend is how it relates in your ERP. So you have in NetSuite, you've invested in NetSuite, and probably one of the things that you've heard inside your organization is that your team has said at some point, or is saying now, that they don't trust the data in your system. And that's not a NetSuite problem, right? NetSuite's not broken because of that. That's a data problem, probably got in there. Data gets in there because it's manually entered and things like that. But the problem is when we have data in the system that's bad, let's say we have outdated purchase order data, everybody in the organization that's getting into NetSuite and using that information is using bad data. So everything they do, from scheduling to customer commitments, everything is off. And so that's a big divider between direct spend and indirect spend. Again, if Trent's desk shows up late, we really don't care. He's inconvenienced. But oh well, but if we can't ship bicycles out if they're missing seats. And if we're scheduling to ship bikes out and no one updated the PO and we don't know the seats are going to be a month late, that means everyone in the organization is disconnected from that. So that's also a big piece to this, is that SourceDay can really clean up the data inside NetSuite for you, so that way everyone in your organization is making better decisions. That's definitely a direct spend component here.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue, I think, into the next question, and we're already starting to answer it, I think. But I think there's probably a bit more to it as well. Like, so the question's asked, how does SourceDay extend NetSuite? Interpreting that from a technical perspective is maybe one way, but I think what you all are talking about is the important way, right? Is how are your clients really incorporating the solution into their process, right? And I think, Clint, you just started to open that door. I'm curious if you have a bit more to share there. I'd love to hear it. And the other thing that sparked to my mind, which isn't a question on my list today, but what are some challenges? Like, I can imagine that change, although good in the longer term, is difficult immediately, right? People have a bit of a hard time wrapping their arms around that automation. So I'm curious if you can share a little bit about that.
Well, one thing I'll tell you, Trent, and this just kind of sets the stage, I know Colby's got a lot of intel here as well, is when we look at what customers are doing with NetSuite, you're using NetSuite to do a lot of things, but in the area of procurement, you're using it to generate purchase orders. Now, once everything is nice and buttoned up, once we're inside NetSuite, where things fall apart for most companies is once the PO is issued and it leaves NetSuite. Now, this is a very manual process probably for everyone that's on this call. And the thing that I always do, and I see if you can see my phone here. So I use Venmo. Probably everyone on this call has used Venmo, and I have two sons, and they always need money, and so I'm always sending them money through Venmo. And what's great about Venmo is I know when they immediately send me when they need money. I know when I send it and they get it. It's a back and forth. Both parties know exactly what's going on. But what's ironic is that everyone in this call, and for the vast majority of NetSuite users out there, when you cut purchase orders, you're going to send out millions of dollars potentially in purchase orders every year, and you have no visibility into whether your suppliers are receiving those purchase orders, much less whether they can actually deliver those goods. So how ironic is that? We can track $5 to our kids, but we can't track millions of dollars worth of purchase orders. So that is sort of the original foundation of where we started SourceDay. Is let's start giving people the visibility they need to what's going on with their supply chain spend. And so that's the very first area that we extend out from NetSuite, is tackling that problem area, which is what happens after it leaves NetSuite.
And the whole Venmo story is really spot on. And it's, when you think about what we do and our built for NetSuite suite app solution, it is truly built to extend NetSuite's purchasing capabilities to the vendor network. So your team and your vendors are exactly on the same page, giving them both a solution to do their job, quicker, faster, more efficiently, and more accurately, and making sure you're both on the same page. There's no, who said what, when did they say it, and ensuring that NetSuite truly is your single source of truth, right? To Clint's point, as soon as you email that PO, it's out of date. As soon as you export a CSV out of NetSuite, it's out of date because someone can update something. So our integration is bilateral. We're always reading data and updating data. So it is always in real time. What is in NetSuite is the latest and greatest. What your vendors are seeing is the latest and greatest, right? There's no lag there. So it's a truly real-time solution. In the world we live in right now, you have to have real-time data, right? Things that you can't even rely on historical forecasts, right? Now is what you need. And so when you think about your ERP, and Clint talked a lot about the data, extending NetSuite's procurement to the vendor network is not only going to help with what we've been talking about, getting things on time and making sure you and your vision are on the same page, but there's a whole downstream effect that happens from MRP, planning, scheduling. If anyone on the line uses MRP or is planning to use MRP, you should really be thinking about this, because your data is probably not right. Any one of the folk that's in finance and they are trying to match their PO, their invoice, and their receipts, doing a three-way match. You probably are going back to procurement a lot because there's mistakes because the purchase orders aren't updated. And again, it's not a NetSuite problem. It's a data problem. You can't do all of this manual. So it's really like giving NetSuite and your procurement, your suppliers, like a automated personal assistant to make sure that all of this gets done.
Awesome. We're quickly running out of time, and again, I wish we had booked an hour for this. But I think this has been really insightful, and hopefully the folks on the call minds are spinning as much as mine are in terms of where this can fit in. I do have one last question, if we can tackle this in a minute or so. I'm curious where you guys are going next. Like, there's obviously still lots on the table from what you've already talked about, and I apologize, I missed your slide on that answer. But I'm curious about what's on the table. What do you see as the next opportunity in this space for you guys, and for not just for you guys, but for the clients?
Yeah, so one thing I'll talk about that's really exciting, and I know something that Clint's been excited about for a long time. So we raised our Series C round of funding. It was $32.5 million. With that, we hired our first ever chief product officer, which is very, very exciting. One of the things that we are looking into, we've been a business for 9 years. We have a tremendous amount of data. And we use our data today to be actionable. We have supplier scorecards and really robust supplier performance analytics. But what we're going to be getting into is predictive analytics, right? Know when something's going to be late before it's late. Understand your lead times predictively ahead of time as things are changing. And this is going to allow us to take this, millions of data touch points and to be able to articulate it in an actionable, predictive way, which is, next level. And the only way you get there is by having a tremendous amount of data that we now have. So we're at a point of our organization to be able to not just give actionable supplier performance data, but predictive analytics, so you can take action before these things happen.
Amazing. Yeah, I think can definitely envision the data. You talked about the millions of transactions going through already, so huge opportunity. Gentlemen and folks, we're out of time already. It's flown by. I want to say thanks again to you two for joining me today and joining us. Hopefully folks are stuck around. I want to say thanks to you for joining us today. And if you do want to get in touch with us, you should see both of our organizations' contact info. And last but definitely not least, if anyone's going to be at SuiteWorld in what is now less than 2 weeks, come find us. We're all going to be there. The Appficiency team will be at booth 122, and we're going to have a little bit of fun at our booth, so come find us. And SourceDay is in booth 915, and I'm sure there's going to be fun there too, not to discount what you guys have going on in your booth.
Decked out in all green. Come get some green swag.
Awesome. Well, everyone, I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks, Trent. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Trent. Bye, everybody.